Hello and welcome to We Five Town, a weekly show talking all things Ipswich. And today we are joined by three wonderful guests: Leigh Simons, Aaron Tester, and Jamie Hirons. First of all, Leigh, what are your thoughts on our loss against Gillingham? And is there anything we should be worried about following the results?
Well, good evening, gentlemen. Well, to be honest, as I watched the whole match on the iPhone, it was pretty bleak from the first get-go, really. They scored after 6 minutes with a bit of a mistake from our defence. Of course, the defender for Gillingham scored straight away, 1-0, and we're back. We're on the back foot straight away. So it's just early days, isn't it, for Paul Cook? Really, he needs to get these players on board and then go from there, because it was just woeful for the first half, and then the second half got even worse, really.
So I'm going to go to you now, Aaron. How are you? And how important is it for Paul Cook to get the players on side as early as he can?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And yeah, of course, obviously it's going to take time. I reckon he was only at the club probably 3 or 4 days, so it's going to be hard for them to sort of switch over from having Lambert and all of his training sessions to suddenly having Paul Cook sessions. But yeah, it needs to be as quickly as possible to get the guys on side so we can start really grinding out some performances come to the end of the season.
And now I'm going to come to you, Jamie. How are you? And should we be too critical about Paul Cook at this early stage?
Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. No, that's just silly. He's had one game. I think he would have learned more in that game had we had won 4-0. You can see the players he brought on in series in the mistakes that he ain't going to feature too much for him. No, I think, and in relation to the last question, I think you can see from all the pictures that we've seen just how much they've brought in on Cook already. The positivity, he's just so positive. He's happy. You can see his enthusiasm to be at the club. They didn't want to be there with Lambert. You can see the relief the club's got, and I think that yesterday was just a learning curve, and we'll go from there. We was without Judge for personal reasons, and Harrop hadn't started before, if I'm correct. So a couple of teething problems, and we'll get a better test on Tuesday. I hope the Lincoln are a really good side.
So do you reckon that Paul Cook has actually learned quite a bit about our squad? Because Freddie Sears came off the bench yesterday and, let's just say, had quite an appalling couple of minutes on the pitch. So has Paul Cook kind of discovered the players that he likes, if that makes sense, and the players who he doesn't like?
I think he would have known most of the best 11 anyway, from having watched games, having seen us at Accrington the other day. I think he also kind of knew this job was going to be coming up, hence why he hasn't got another one. I think will have been keeping an eye on us, and I think he has the luxury of making 5 substitutions. He was trying things out. The game wasn't going for us too much. He tried something, it didn't work. We're one game into hopefully a long reign with Paul, because what I see of him, I really like the guy.
So let's quickly talk about the 3-1 defeat to Gillingham. Unfortunately, I think most of us paid for the game, and I think most of us have actually kind of regretted doing so. But anyway, both teams lined up with the 4-2-3-1. Town relatively unchanged, apart from Josh Harrop, who came in for Alan Judge, who is out of the team due to a family bereavement. We wish him the best. And as I just said, Gillingham also lined up with the 4-2-3-1. And Gillingham scored early on in the 7th minute. Jack Tucker scored the first goal for Gillingham. And Leigh, did they deserve to score?
Of course they do. They just went at us at full speed, really, because they've got Graham on the wings. You've got O'Connell on the other side, and they just went for us. The midfield battle, I think we were second to everything, really. Dempsey and O'Keefe just ran it for Gillingham. The goalkeeper was pretty good for them. Just kept us out, really. So, like I said, with Tucker and everything else, their set pieces were pretty good. Their throw-ins, the right back just kept on throwing the ball in straight away. If you get anywhere near our penalty box, he was just throwing it straight in, looking for Tucker to head it over and score. That's how they were set up, and they were a tall team. Our midfield were quite short, especially with Dezelle and Bishop in the middle. Harrop was playing out of position, I thought. I think he should have been playing behind Norwood. but yeah, we were second to everything really.
So, Aaron, in the first half, were there any positives that we could take away? Because, of course, you were 2-0 down at the break, I think. I kind of zoned out after the first one went in. But were there any positives that we could take away from the first half?
To be honest, I don't think there was a lot of positives in all of the game, really, apart from, as was said earlier, he's learnt a lot about his players. There was a lot of effort, but sort of aimless effort. You know what I mean? They were first to every second ball. They seemed like they wanted it more. I don't think we were quite ready for that in quite a tight pitch. We didn't have the right fight or the right belief, really, that we were going to go and outplay them. We were just resorting to lumping it straight away, and they would win that every time. Their centre halves are massive. Their main striker's a big lump, and he caused us trouble. So it wasn't a lot of great things to take from it, but it's just one of those things. You sort of got to pick your socks up, move off, move on.
So, Jamie, do you agree? Do you reckon that Paul Cook's actually learned more out of his players than he could have done? If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. As I say, he would have seen from the substitutions that they were not really going to be featuring too much unless there's a serious issue in injuries. And he would have learned. I think he'd have learned about the attitude that you had the character to come back into the game. Good header from Chambers. So we weren't at our best, but still got a goal out of the game again. It's Gillingham, but Gillingham are not a bad side. Steve Evans gets his sides well organised, hard to beat. He done it at Rotherham. I went to the Gills away game last season. We could have easily not won that game. They're hard teams to beat, Steve Evans teams, and that's why their team has improved quite a bit. They've had good investment in the summer. I was speaking to a Gillingham fan I know in the summer, and he was excited. Reckons Jordan Graham is brilliant. You know, he couldn't do it for us. And that Verdane Oliver, he seems a really good player. So I don't think it's as bad as you could believe if you think, oh, we lost at Gillingham. Gillingham are not a bad side. And I think that you can judge Cook on 10, 15 games in. You can't judge one game.
I think a big thing as well, when you're listening to the commentary, so obviously we don't have the Ipswich, Radio Suffolk commentary. When you're listening to their commentary, they were really excited about this game going in. They were talking about chasing down the top six. They weren't looking like being a bottom half team. They wanted to be a top half team, and they were excited to play us. Whereas always when we're looking at play teams like Gillingham, we're all like, oh yeah, we should be beating these, Definitely, they were right up for playing us. Even the commentators were. They were excited to come up against an Ipswich side.
So do you reckon it was a case of them wanting it more than us? Because in my opinion, they showed more tenacity on the pitch. We didn't really show any energy. We almost looked quite lethargic out there.
Yeah, I think so. And once again, I think we've played 4-5 games in a row where they've not changed the team. Where I say Harrop's come in, but Bishop and Dazelle have been sort of in midfield in like a 2. And sort of done a lot of running, and Bishop and Dazelle aren't really known for grinding out loads of games.
I think you missed a Downs in that game.
Oh, definitely.
Bit of bite in midfield. I think if you've had him since the start of the season, then that team would be a couple of places higher up the league.
No, agreed.
So Luke Chambers, after his appearance yesterday, he made it into the top 10 Ipswich Town appearances of all time, and he also marked that off with a fairly insignificant goal. First of all, what do you think of Luke Chambers this season? Is he past it? And how important has he been as a captain for our club? We're not talking about the player, we're talking about the captain.
Yeah, he's a fantastic captain. You can see his passion for the club. He's a proper professional. Hardly ever gets injured. Obviously, looks after himself well. He's good with the young lads. I know he's fostered half the team. He's had half of them staying at his house for a number of years. He's really popular in the dressing room. I think every player respects him. As a player, he's had a 50-50 career for Ipswich. He can have a really good moment, and then he can be a plonker, and that's how he is. But I think if Vincent Young's in fit, I don't think he'd get in my team, if I'm honest, because I'd have him at right back, and I think Wolfenden and Wilson are more reliable centre backs than him, personally. But I like the guy, and fantastic career.
So, Lee, on Thursday, we spoke a bit about Luke Chambers, and we also spoke about the players who are out of contract, Luke Chambers being one of them. Do you reckon that Luke Chambers would be a good character to keep around in the squad? Not necessarily as a player, but maybe as a character, just to keep the dressing room in order?
Well, I think so. I think that Paul Cook's coming in. I think he's looking at Chambers to be that guy to go to. You know, he's nearly had 400 appearances now for the club. You know, he's been in and out of the team this season and last season. I feel that you know, he wants to be someone there and go from there. Really, I think he's the go-to man for everyone else. But yeah, I would keep him as like a coach or a mentor for the younger players, even for the older players. Really, yeah. I'll keep it as a coaching, but not as a player.
Similar to Skuse.
Yeah, carry on.
I'll say Skuse is probably doing that in the background. You forget he's there at the club now. You know, he hasn't featured all season, but he's a good voice in amongst a young squad. And I think even in some of the older players, you look at Laws, who's not a young player, but he hasn't got that experience and maturity around the club. Someone like Skuse and Chambers, who have been there a number of years now, understand the club. I think them sort of people are vital to keep around.
So let's spark some life into Aaron. Do you reckon Chambers and Skuse, do you reckon they would make a good management pairing, maybe for the under-23s?
Oh yeah, definitely. One day, I think they're best mates, aren't they? Chambers and Skuse. I think we might have spoken about this before. They'd be good to have around the club. Maybe good to get their badges and get their coaching experience here, and maybe be manager and coach of a lower age group, and they maybe sort of work out their way up into the first team one day.
So let's briefly get onto the fact that Chambers is starting over Mattison, which to some Ipswich fans is actually quite baffling. Why is Luke Chambers still starting week in, week out when he obviously hasn't got the legs in him? And what can Mattison maybe do to start or to earn that place in the starting lineup?
Well, it's definitely got to be done in training for Mattison, because I think when we played Accrington in the week, Paul Cook come off the game saying that Chambers was the best player on the pitch. So I think he was gonna play. I don't agree with him, but that's what Paul Cook says. And whether he's trying to get Chambers on side there and sort of get him sort of in his ear and get Chambers behind him. But I think he's got to show it in training, because I know Chambers, and he scored again Saturday, so he's going to play again. So it's going to be a real sort of training ground battle between the pair of them to see who starts on a Saturday.
Okay, so Nsiala and Wilson, they've been our centre-back pairing for a majority of the couple of weeks. Do you reckon that Chambers would be better suited as a centre-back as opposed to a full-back who would probably be running up the flanks, playing in that position?
I think he's got too many mistakes in him.
Agreed, yeah.
Personally, I think Wilson is old school. No nonsense. He gets it out at the first opportunity, and we look quite solid with him in there. I think it's a shrewd signing by Lambert, to be fair. Him and Wolfenden, or him and Nsiala, because Nsiala looks a better player when he's around Wilson.
Maybe less mistakes as well.
Yeah, the calmness of Wilson, the experience of Wilson alongside him. I think we've turned Wilson into a player that clubs would actually look at and think that, you know, he's a good player at this level. And I think he's turned into a very important player.
So, okay, apart from last time out where Wilson didn't have the best of games, neither did anybody else, do you reckon that Wilson would be a player worth keeping in the first team next season? Or do you reckon we actually need to buy some other players, Lee?
To be honest, I think he should be captain for next season, really, for James Wilson, because he's a former international player as well. We got him on a free transfer. So Lambert did a good business there. But going back to the Chambers thing, how I would play Chambers is with three at the back, have him on the right-hand side and have Matheson on the right wing, and you've got Kenlock on the left-hand side. But with James Wilson, he's come back from injury. He's played pretty well, and he's in for a good season for the rest of the season, really, I think, anyway.
So Paul Cook admitted in the press conference that Gillingham were the better side. He said, "It was always going to be a difficult game. You'll never leave Gillingham and you'll never leave a Steve Evans team without having to earn the right to win the football match. Unfortunately for us today, I felt Gillingham were the better side." So after hearing what Cook just said in the post-match interview, do you reckon that Gillingham were the better side? I reckon the answer is quite obvious, Aaron.
Yeah. I don't think anybody can argue with that. They were the better team for the full 90 minutes. We had spells in the first half and a couple of spells in the second half where we looked a good team. But I think they really did control it and they really earned their 3 points.
So ITFC Tweedy here, 2 long servants of the club get the best ITFC players of the decade. Smith, Murphy, Brew, Berra would be a very fun match. Kevin Brew, is Kevin Brew really one of the best players of the decade? Sorry, ITFC Tweedy, I'd beg to differ. But let's talk about Paul Cook a minute, because this was, of course, Paul Cook's first game in charge. How optimistic are we about Paul Cook's tenure as a manager? Do you reckon we could finally get promoted out of League One, Jamie?
Yeah, I believe that he can get us in. I think we will finish in the playoffs this season. I do think that we've got a good run in. I think his enthusiasm and positivity is gonna be good for us. I think you can get us in the playoffs, and who knows, in the playoffs, it's a complete lottery. If we could do that, then I don't think we'd come back down under him if he was to get up. I'll see us building something with him. I think it's a bit of a project that he wants to be involved in. It's not a 5-minute thing for either party. He's been waiting for a job. The club fits because we know the potential of the club. You get it right at this club, it could be something special. One club town. The potential of it is fantastic, and all we've been asking for is a team to be proud of and to play front foot football, which he plays. I think it's a very, very good partnership. I haven't seen anyone so far, radio, in the media, or anything, say it's not a good appointment.
So, Aaron, this is the project. This is a potential project that could actually take a long time to work, if you will. Do you reckon we should give Paul Cook maybe the benefit of the doubt if he doesn't get us promoted this season?
Well, yeah, I'd say yes, but I'd like him to get us in and around it. So a playoff, definitely get us in the playoffs. If we get worse from here on in, I don't know what to think then, to be honest. But if we can get in the playoffs and have a good go at it, I'd be happy for him to have a real good long-term project with us, Ipswich. And I think that's what Marcus wants, and I think that's what he wants. Because listening to his press conferences, that was a big thing for him, that he wasn't going to get an end-of-the-season fix. He wanted something they could really work on. And I think, well, Marcus is definitely one of those owners that is going to give the manager time, as we saw with Lambert. So it's a sort of a match made in heaven for all of us, I think.
So I'm just going to throw this question out there so anybody can chime in. The takeover has been relatively quiet this week. Brett M. Johnson is allegedly the new owner. He's allegedly put a bid into the club. Do you reckon the takeover is actually going to happen? And how much do we need this takeover to actually happen, especially since we have a new manager and this club, as you just said, Jamie, has so much potential?
Yeah, the investment is badly needed, 100%. I think it does look like it will go ahead from what you see. It's more than just rumours. Evans is doing his usual denial, just the same as when Leigh O'Neill comes out the other day and says we're not going to rush into anything. Less than 24 hours later, we've got a new manager. You know, I don't get that bloke's role, but that's a separate side of things. I do see it happening. I do personally, and I think that manager change was needed, but the takeover one could really galvanise the whole club. Get rid of the last 15 years, start again. They might not work. They might not be the answer, but we've got to go with something.
So, Ben Wilkes, interested to get the boys' thoughts on the Swansea young winner. This isn't a real player, by the way. Get in the bag. I think that's his name. We need a young player. we need a young player like that, don't we? Okay, if you could change any position on the field, bring in a young player from any other club, what would it be? Personally, for me, I would change the centre-back position or maybe the goalkeeping position, as I don't think Holy really has a long-term future at the club, Aaron.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a good goalkeeper would be a real good thing for us, because I just watch Holy and the other keeper, and I don't feel confident about it whatsoever. Holy, for the first goal, I know it was a good strike and it was straight up. He did not move a muscle, Holy. I'm not sure what his reactions are like, but he did not even flinch with that ball going at him. And it's sort of it blows my mind that he could be that sort of. He knows a shot's coming, get down to it. But no, I agree. A good centre half. I think we could look at every position on our team and think a good young player could be a good thing, to be honest.
So, Leigh, thoughts on that? And do you reckon we should give Harry Wright an opportunity?
Why not?
Well, why not? Why don't we give him a chance? He's a young goalkeeper still, and I think his contract is up at the end of the summer. So why not give him a go? It happened to his dad, so why not? We just threw him into the Premier League, and what happened? He got a clean sheet against Coventry, I think it was, back in the day. So throw him in, see how it happens. Yeah, I feel like a goalkeeper is needed. I do like the Lincoln City goalkeeper at the moment, Alex Palmer. He's on loan from West Brom. He's had 13 clean sheets already this season, I think he has. So he's English. He's 24, so why not try him? Also, there is talks about Josh Windass maybe coming to us from Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah. So I saw that this afternoon in the Sheffield Star. They're talking about him and Paul Cook get back together. So he's another attacking midfielder. He can play left, right, or behind the striker. So yeah, good player for Windass for us. And I think the goalkeeper is probably the number one target for myself. But centre backs for me, no, I don't think so. I'll stick with the defence what we got, and then try and build that back spine of the team from there.
So, Jamie, Leigh just mentioned that Josh Windass is allegedly reported to have links to the club. Do you reckon we need another attacking midfielder there? Because, we already have Judge, we have Teddy Bishop who can slot in there when needs must. So do you reckon it's a position that we really need, I don't know, to get another player in for?
Possibly. You've got them players, but are them players doing enough? Are we getting enough goals from them players? We've got Harrop on loan who hasn't really had much of a chance, but when he hasn't done a tremendous amount. Bishop, I like him, but I don't think he's going to get you 10 goals a season, which you need from that sort of player. Dazell's in the back of the midfield. Judge, he's good at what he does, but I wouldn't class him as that sort of player. So I wouldn't mind just getting that sort of position. Yeah. But you've got to play him in the right system. That sort of position for me, you're like a central attacking midfielder in the number 10. And if we've got to play that sort of formation to suit that type of player. So if we're going to go with that sort of player, then I would go with a diamond midfield of wingers wide, a 4-4-2. And you have your Dazell / Downs at the back, and you have your Windassy sort of player at the top. Top of your diamond in behind two potent strikers. That's what I would go.
So, Aaron, do you agree with that? Do you reckon we should potentially play with a diamond to get the most out of these players? Because Paul Cook is actually known as a 4-4-2 manager. That is his preferred formation. So could Paul Cook maybe spring a surprise and play with a diamond?
Well, yeah, possibly, but that's going to be completely up to him. What he thinks is going to be his best team and what he thinks he's going to get out of each player. But if he plays a certain formation, doesn't work, and he goes straight back to sort, and then players will be out of position again. That's the big thing. It's whether you can coach the players that we've got already, or players coming in to learn that new position, and if you can really make that work, is a big thing. Because you can't just put them in a formation and go, right, there you go and score 8 goals a season, whatever it was, 10 goals a season. You've got to actually coach them to be that good, and that's what I think we've been missing.
So our next game on Tuesday is against Lincoln. Lincoln typically play with a 4-3-3. I think I'm right in saying that, Leigh. And last time out, they beat Crewe Alexandra 3-0 with goals from Morgan Rogers, Conor McGrandles and Brennan Johnson. First of all, Leigh, do you reckon we could win this game? And what kind of team are you expecting to see from Paul Cook? Could we see maybe a changed side for once?
From what I saw on Saturday, he may change a few players. He may change formation. I don't know. He may do that. But I personally believe that Lincoln will come out with a 4-3-3 again. Brendan Johnson, he's one person to watch. He's had 7 goals and 11 assists so far this season. So, he's been in and around with the whole team for the last 10 matches. He's combined with 17 goals with assists and the goals he's scored so far. Cam Wharton as well. He's on loan from West Bromwich Albion, so he'll be wanting to score. He's only scored 2 goals from 6 games so far, but he'll be a threat. Also, Morgan Rogers is going to be another threat as well. He's on loan from Manchester City. He's scored 5 goals from 16 appearances. And so we need to be watching out for those 3 forward players. And of course, you've got the 3 midfielders who will probably try and pick our midfielders up as well. So, it's going to be a tough game. But I feel we could squeeze away with a 2-1 win.
So, Aaron, do you reckon this is a game that we have to win to even stand a chance of going into the playoffs? Because, we need to start winning games if we wish to be there at the end of the season.
I think it's definitely a game that we need to be trying to get points from. I think we'd look at that game. I think all of us would look at that to start with. They've been a good side this season. I think we take a point from that game. But ideally, we would have got 3 points from the weekend. So obviously, a win would be great. But I would personally take a point and move on.
So, Jamie, do you agree with that? And would you take a point from the game against Lincoln?
No. If we got a point, I wouldn't be too disappointed. But if we can beat Hull, Donny and Accrington, then we can beat Lincoln. As much as I say, like I said about Gillingham, these teams, they are easily Lincoln, but they are a good side. But at the same time, we're going in accepting a point at home to Lincoln. They're not Man U. We've got to change that mentality and go into the game believing we can win. I've seen their results lately. That they do concede. They're not as tight at the back as they once were. They concede goals. Parrott's going to score sooner or later, I believe. I think his actual all-round game is very good. Nor's has always got a goal in him. Paul Cook will have had a little bit more time to implement things. Learned from Saturday. I think we can win this game. I think we will win this game.
So I'm just going to read through a few of the comments. Guy Hines here, bottom left and top right look like very lovely men. Thank you. I bet they really, really appreciate it. And Glass of Cow has a question here. Were there any positives to take from yesterday's game? Or will it be a strenuous few days in the training camp for the boys? I'll ask you that, Aaron. What do you make of the question? And do you reckon there were any positives to take from yesterday's game?
Well, I think we covered that a bit earlier, didn't we? With when we actually talked through the game. Obviously, scoring was a positive, but I think training needs to be hard training sessions from now until the game on Tuesday, and hopefully we can get a better result.
So, do you reckon there'll be a couple of tough days on the training pitch? Because, of course, Paul Cook hasn't really had the opportunity to properly run them through the tactics. Do you reckon there'll be extra training sessions, Jamie, for the boys?
You've got to remember the games are coming thick and fast, and it's a Saturday, Tuesday turnaround. And we've got something like 7 or 8 Saturday, Tuesdays in a row. I don't think they could squeeze too many more in. He might do a Zoom meeting and discuss things like that, but I don't think it's going to be too much more footwork, running or anything like that, because you've got to look after these. Because as much as they're professional footballers, Saturday, Tuesday can take its toll. And I don't think that'll be the case. But I don't think there's a need to. I mean, you can't. Everyone drops a performance here and there. As I say, we did get back in the game, and I think had Sears not come on, we could well have got something out of that game. He gave both goals away. And and we're pinning the whole thing on a poor performance when actually 60 minutes in, we got an equaliser. We was the ones then on the front foot. They only scored because we gave them 2 goals. So I don't think it's as bad as people are making out.
Thank you very much for the comments, Daniel. I've never actually heard of that player, so I'll probably move straight away. And Eric Shawn, I don't even think he exists. I don't think he's a real player, I'm afraid. But Guy Hines mentions Troy Parrott. And Troy Parrott, of course, played the other day. He hasn't actually scored yet for Ipswich Town. What do we make of Troy Parrott? Because if you ask me, personally, I haven't been too impressed with him.
I thought at Accrington on Tuesday, he was fantastic. First couple of games, I thought he's another donkey who can't score a goal. But I think watching his all-round game at Accrington, he brought others into the game very well. He held the ball up. I wasn't able to catch too much of the previous 2 games of work. But the 2 games I have seen of him lately, I've been impressed with his all-round game, actually. I mean, that's not what he was brought in for. He's brought in to score goals. But I think that the goals will come. And I think he's a decent player at this level. I wouldn't say he's a Championship or Premier League player. I know he's young, but I can't see that ever happening. But I think at the minute he's doing a good job for us.
A massive thing that I didn't expect with him is his work rate. He works so hard. And I was expecting him to come in and be a bit of a almost drama queen coming from Spurs. And if he doesn't get his own way, he doesn't score a few goals, he'll throw a sulk. But he works his socks off every game. And I've been actually quite pleased watching him, and he's you can see he's very classy. Obviously, hopefully, a goal could sort of spring a few goals from him.
So, Leigh, your thoughts on Troy Parrott, and do you reckon we're playing him in the right formation? Because again, he hasn't scored yet, and maybe in the right system, he will bang in a few goals when we need them.
Well, I agree with Jamie Narrow. Basically, his work rate has been excellent. First couple of games when he come into loan, okay, he's just used to the formation, the teammates and everything else, but he's been very close to scoring on a few occasions. I thought he actually scored on Saturday with the overhead kick, when Bennett's cut into the box, crossed it in, and I thought, he scored, but he hit the post. But that goal will come. I feel that he just needs that one goal. He will score maybe 10 for the rest of the season, maybe, if he just gets that goal on Tuesday night against Lincoln. I think he'll do quite well. But just remember, he's only 19. Coming from the Spurs under 23s. I know he's been in the first team picture a couple of times with Spurs, but for coming into League One, especially with the likes of Gillingham or even Lincoln, they're going to have tall teams, two tall players in their teams. He's going to be battered around, he's going to get kicked and everything else. But no, I'm very impressed with his work rate, but he just needs that goal. I'm sure Paul Cook's going to get his head right and just hit the back of the net. It will do that.
So before we get on to today's big question, please keep those comments and those questions coming in. We really appreciate them. And I just had to do that. Sorry. So today's big question, sorry for blocking you all off the screen.
Right.
So yesterday on Twitter, we asked you, who do you reckon is Ipswich Town's player of the season so far? Quite a difficult question, isn't it? It was slim pickings. Alan Judge was on top of the poll with 39.1%, James Wilson with 30%, and then followed by James Norwood with 18.2%. Do you reckon any of those players have a genuine shout to player of the season? Or do you reckon we should look elsewhere? Because somebody did mention, I think it was you, Jamie, Andre Dazelle earlier on.
Yeah, I've mentioned Doz. I don't think he hasn't scored that many goals or anything, but you can see the class in the boy. It's a hard one to pick out anyone really. So you are clutching a bit, but I think he has shown a consistent 7 out of 10 near enough every game, the odd 9 here and there. With his passing, some of his passing accuracy is ridiculous. So I think you could pick him out with someone, but I think you just missed so many players. So many players have had like periods out this season. I think, as I say, if Downs is fit all season, he's your player of the season, because he's a constant 8 out of 10. Pretty much, he's a class player. Same if Vincent Young's involved, he'll be right up there. But I understand why people have gone for Dawes, because when he plays, he does tend to score. And he makes he can lead the line very well. His attitude lets him down at times. But at the same time, I'd rather him have that bit of bite and a bit of anger at times than not. You know what I mean?
So, Aaron, let's talk about James Nord, because James Nord has found himself to walk into a bit of controversy every now and then on social media. Of course, he got into a bit of a tussle with Warney on Twitter, which I think we all saw. Do you reckon James Nord has had a good season for us? And next season, is he maybe a player to actually build the squad around? Because again, he can score goals, as Jamie said, and he has got talent.
I don't think we've seen enough of him so far this season, because he spent a lot of the time out injured. So he's come back and played a few games and he's scored, obviously, 3 winners on the bounce, I think it was. So if we can really get him playing however many games we've got left this season, see if we can really see him scoring goals, then yeah, it will be a good season. But I think it's too early for him to really put him in that team of the player of the season poll, to be honest, at the moment, considering I think he's played probably only just got double-figure games, probably.
So who would your player of the season so far be, Aaron? Would it be any of the guys who we mentioned on the poll, or would it be somebody else?
I think what Jamie said with Dazell's a good one, because at the beginning of the season he was excellent, and teams were having to sort of do homework on us to sort of come and pick him up, because otherwise he would just ruin the game for them. And obviously they've learnt that, and they are putting men on Dazell every week now. So I'd put him right up there. And I'd say Judge has been the best player so far this year. But as you said, it's been this year. We're only in March. That first half of the season he wasn't great, and everybody was thinking, "Oh, Judge is Lambert's man. Get him out," sort of thing. So it's a tough one to say, yeah. But hopefully at the end of these next few games we can have a definitive answer.
Wise words from our new Joe Rogan. I reckon he's putting you on a bit of a pedestal there. Something to live up to. But anyway, Leigh, do you reckon, first of all, who is your player of the season? And second of all, James Wilson. I know he hasn't played that much this season. He's only played a couple of games. Do you reckon he stands a good chance to have player of the season? And how important has he been for us?
It's been very important, but he's only played a handful of games because he's been injured. He's been injured since October, and he's only come back within the last couple of weeks anyway. So he's in contention, but overall it'll be Alan Judge, because he's had the most games out of the whole players at the moment. But if we were going back to the beginning of the season, we're forgetting about one man. Edwards he was on fire, wasn't he? He scored 5 out of 5 games, and he was on fire until he got that injury. And then since he's come back from injury, he hasn't been that right player again. So you have to look at him. You have to look at Caden Jackson. Even he's been frozen out of the season when Lambert was here, and then he's come back. So I know he come back on as a substitute at the weekend. So he's another one. But at the moment for me, it's between Wilson and Judge. But yeah, I think both those two players are key. But we'll see what happens. But as Aaron was saying, and Jamie was saying, it's always to take. It's only in March. We've still got about 3 or 4 months left to go.
So, Jamie, Kenlock was mentioned there by Mike Brown. Hi, Mike. First of all, do you reckon Kenlock could actually keep his place next season? And how important has he been for us? Because under every manager we've had, he's always found a way to freeze himself out. He's never actually been a consistent player in our squad.
I think this is his best time he's had at the club. He's putting in some good performances, good assists for Norwood's goal at Hull the other day. He put a good ball in yesterday, actually, as well. That could have ended up in something. It's his best consistent 7 or 8 games. I don't exactly know what it is that he's had since he's ever played for us. He's the best left back at the club, I would say. Stephen Ward isn't. He's not able to do it all season. He hasn't got the legs anymore. If he can play next season, that depends on Cook. Depends whether he thinks going and buying a left back is the best option, or if he thinks Kenlock's good enough. If he thinks Kenlock's good enough, then he could. But as much as Kenlock's been good, I think I would still strengthen in that area. And a lot of that question will depend on what division we're in. Because if we go up, he's not going to. I don't think he would cut it. But he is doing very well, and credit where credit's due. He's stuck at it, and it's his club. He wants to play for us, and good luck to him.
So, Aaron, it's now or never for Miles Kenlock. He's 25 years old. He's no longer a youngster. So do you reckon he could do enough to prove that he is good enough to keep the left-back position, maybe for next season?
Well, hopefully, because obviously he's been here a long time now and he's one of our own. So we want to see him. Obviously, we all want to see him do well. But that's obviously up to him and in training and in games. If he can really string out some good performances and keep it going to the end of the season, there's no reason why he can't be the man next season. But as we've just said, every manager that's had him, McCarthy, Hurst, Lambert, they've all found a way to get somebody in to replace him. So if that happens again, I think we'll know our answer. I think he's not going to be with us much longer, unfortunately.
So now it is time to end the show. I want to thank the three of you for joining me here today. I'm just going to go around and ask you all what you think the score will be on Tuesday against Lincoln. So, Aaron, what do you reckon the score will be?
I think it's going to be 1-1.
1-1. Leigh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to sit on the fence. It's going to be a 2-1 win to Town.
2-1 win. Optimistic. Jamie?
2-1 or 1-0. I can't decide. But both to us.
Perfect. We need to be optimistic, lads. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me here today. On Wednesday, we have got news on a new competition, which we will also put out on Twitter. So keep your eyes peeled on that. And again, I want to thank you all for joining. I want to thank you all in the chat for joining us here today. And don't forget to join us each and every week over on YouTube, every Friday live on YouTube as opposed to the premiere, and of course on iTunes. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy the game on Tuesday.